Oh, hi. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. It's a very good question. I would have never thought you have been asking yourself something like this for so long, but yeah, now that you mention it, it's actually sharply complicated. Hi, my name is Toni
Hi,
Larios.
I'm Toni Larios.
I've lived in Mexico for the last 38 years of my life, and coincidentally enough, I am also 38 years old. To make that make sense. I've learned the language, the food, the people, the memes, the culture in general enough to make this video a reality. Stereotypes are useful in a very primitive and simple minded way. We all use them because we can't really keep up with a full in-depth anthropologist essay about every single group out there, so we just pull a fast card and get a chance to know about something a little bit more. For example, if you ask my dumbass about uh, Russian, right? If I'm not immediately thinking about Ivan Drago, I'm most likely gonna think of some skinny white blonde guy with sunken eyes, buzz cut hairdo, some shady tattoos, wearing that one all Adidas outfit corn rock for like the early 2000s. You remember that one? Yeah. And an expression that looks like he's gonna tell you some counterfeit or some kind of old Baba Yaga looking old lady with an old plain dress and those white blanket looking head dress things. You know the one? I don't know. I don't fucking know. What's the name of that thing? The headdress thing? I don't know. Obviously, that's not old Russians, but that's what I thought. Is it accurate? The short answer is yes, I guess. If it never happened in some point in time, nobody would imagine that ever at all about a Russian, right? We wouldn't think of we would think of something else. Whatever stereotype you can think of was accurate on a very specific moment in time when that group of people became part of the popular zeitgeist, or it was accurate by an extremely malicious biased point of view of some other group interested on creating propaganda against the former group, or that former group of people created a very focused view of themselves for whatever kind of reason, and its accuracy is dubious at best, but it's based on some reality. But anyways, why do you think when I say Mexican? Let me guess. You're picturing a fat, sloppy looking dude with biker gang looking mustache and a variety of hats that go all the way from a big sombrero, which literally sombrero just means hat in Spanish. It doesn't really have a particular name, like a tejana, for example. Oh, yeah, that's right. This one, the generic cowboy hat, actually has a name besides just cowboy hat. It's Tejana. Or they're probably gonna be wearing some kind of crummy looking baseball hat. And well, that's pretty much gonna be the variety of hats. But our specimen here, it's pretty much gonna be very physically unappealing, right? He's gonna be lazy. He's gonna have a brain dead expression, speaking slow and meandering. He's gonna be brown, very brown. Most likely wavy hair, maybe? I don't know. I don't fucking know. Sort of, maybe hairy. Very hairy for whatever reason. I don't get that one. Judging by any Steven Spielberg movie you have ever watched. Newsbreak here. Super hairiness is not exclusive to brown people all over the world and evil people. But anyways, why would it surprise you that a derogative, impish, and painfully ignorant stereotype is propagated by a scrawny, greedy, hook-nosed gentleman? An undeniably talented and accomplished, yet terribly misinformed, gentlemen. Mexicans are just brown. Well, where did this image came from? To start, about the brown skin. Beginning from that, it's already getting really complicated and kind of loaded. If you search online, you'll find a generalized percentage of like 65 of the total population of the country identifying as brown or moreno. Simply, moreno means brown, just dark skinned. But when you go to Spanish searches, you'll find more diverse results. Depending on who is asking and who is answering, it goes from 80% to 30% of the population identifying as morenos. Moreno can also be a black person. If you don't want to sound too direct or something, you can call them moreno. But anyways, remember the emphasis on identifying. Studies also point out that about 30 to 45% of people can be categorized as white. The numbers are all over the place, and depending on where you're standing in the country, you're gonna stumble upon all sorts of different sites. In Mexico, a lot depends on just what you kind of guess or want to identify yourself as. The land known as Mexico is an amalgamation of an extremely wide range of American indigenous nations that stemmed from all over the continent, from North America to South America. Most of the Native American tribes in the United States were Mexican at some point, as well as the Mayan territory is shared by not just Mexico, but it's in Peru and Guatemala and you name it. They stem from all over the continent, and also nobody knows with 100% accuracy about all of the people of the entire continent, of how they all got here, aside from vague links with most likely Asia around 30,000 years ago from across the Bering Strait that connected Russia and Alaska during the Ice Age, and then later on having influence from Africa a little bit later, but that's later on. That's the most official narrative, which is the easiest one to follow, giving the limited evidence we have, although there's more theories, but we can't go around that right now. There's not time for that or information. We're all here to talk about Speedy Gonzalez. Yeah, he's brown. He's brown, you see. Is he offensive though? Surprisingly enough, the general opinion over time, generations after generations, about Speedy Gonzalez in Mexico has never been too bad. Surprisingly enough, yeah. It's based on a very dated and hyper-specific stereotype about people from only a small area of the country. This one being his jarocho outfit, the traditional outfit from Veracruz, which is in the southeast coast of Mexico. That's Veracruz is pretty much where the American continent started. When you think about it, pretty much, not 100%, but yeah, anyways. Yeah, although the accent is Yucateco. You see that accent you hear in US media?
Slowpoke Rodriguez, he's for me. Senor Slowpoke, you will be good with the chili peppers.
It's pretty much Mayan accent, technically.
Maya. Bueno, pues ya están en Bisabeles, Huaytano, Megate, Tennessee. No te vuelta, fíjate, que mencioné, pues, la cuesta te cuatela, ¿dónde?
De Oaxaca, México, humilde oaxaqueño.
O directamente de Yucatán para Oaxaca.
Así, no, mi gente, la verdad que se escucha genial. Y creo que él habla un poquito más rápido que el mixteco. Creo que Maya se escucha como habla más rápido que el mixteco. Y la verdad que me dio mucho.
Oigan acá, ¿qué pasó? Como que ya está pringando la lluvia. Mare, sí, mejor nos vamos. A me alcanza a mi casa. No traigo carro, sino te alcanzo, ne. Entonces tomo camión mejor. ¿Traes menudo, ne? La neta no, chava. Mejor vamos a comprar un vaporcito. Dale, así cambia mi billete. Apúrate que ya viene la lluvia. Nada. Exageras.
¿Cuál es la diferencia entre pirish, bobosh y botashish? Porque no son lo mismo. Son palabras que usamos los yucatecos, pero no son sinónimos de trasero, como muchos piensan. El pirish viene siendo tu fundillo, tu asterisco, tu nudo de globo, tu culito, por donde no te da el sol. El bobosh es el coxis, por eso cuando te caes de la hamaca, lo primero que se te aporre en el suelo es el bobosh. Se te sacó de todo el esqueleto. ¡Uy! Me aporre mi bobosh. Y ahora sí, el botashish, pues sí es el trasero. Son tus nalgas. Son tus otros cachetes. ¡Uy! Pero qué sabroso botashish tienes. ¡Ay, fuck! ¡Qué asco me doy!
Is the accent mainly from like Yucatan? If you mix Mayan accent and Baligura accent, yeah, there's Baligura
Güey, ¿por qué
accent in
dicen
Mexico.
eso?
Oh, you
Cero,
better believe
te lo
there
juro. O
is.
sea, es que hablo normal. O sea, yo tengo amigas o escucho chavas que dices, güey, hablas súper fresa con la papota en la boca. Yo, cero, no me siento así, no me escucho así. O sea, hablo normal.
¿Por qué habla así? O sea, neta, todos me lo están preguntando y no sé qué tiene de raro. Literalmente mis familiares, mis amigos, o sea, todos los que conozco hablan de que así. Aquí en Puebla, York, de que todos hablamos así, no como en Ciudad de México, que ahí hablan como con un tono naquito muy raro. Y los respeto, pero aprendan a hablar con clase, por favor.
And you mix them both together, it sounds like this.
Si me vuelven a hacer un comentario de que hablo muy yuca fresa, no voy a volver a hablar. Ni hablo muy yuca fresa, exageran.
¿Qué onda, nenes? Aquí ando el tour por el huerto que pensé que iba a caer la lluvia. Y nada, coño. Nada más el bochorno te miente, pero me estoy sofocando el calor. Tremendo calor yucateco, ¿ah? Ma.
Yeah, that's the thing, now you know. Although painfully stereotypical in general, for the most part, Speedy Gonzalez is generally not portrayed in a derogative light when you think about it. He's legitimately charismatic and capable to an extent. He has endured as a classic character to this very day just by his own, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's refreshing coming from like a character created in the United States in the 50s about Mexico. Oh my god. What? Yeah. People in general get a little bit eye-rolly about him, you know, but he's endearing enough to just kind of endure, and like, people like him for the most part. He was one of my favorite Looney Tunes as a kid, actually. He endures more than a lot of, like, more than half of the cast of the Looney Tunes. Okay? Looney Tunes. But still, the brown skin. And this has to do with the Speedy Gonzalez trope. Since people are more mixed race in Mexico, discrimination is linked more to skin tone, sadly, more than race. And also, people are more openly classist than racist. It's complicated. Whenever people, for the most part, bring some kind of discrimination about your physical features, is because try to act surprised. Lighter skin tones are generally associated with higher class, since the indigenous people were the historically subjugated ones, and the masters were the whiter Spanish descendant ones in the beginning. But then everybody kind of mixed, and race became sort of like irrelevant to an extent. And darker became, you are poor peon who works under the sun, and I am not like that. I have status. Look at me, I'm pale. As everything in this video, it's complicated. But I can't go over this subject in order to not make this like an extra hour long. But just know,
it's complicated.
Pretty much in a big way. It all depends on what people identify, as I've been saying it. And since races are so entangled with each other, you can just claim anything depending on preferences, really. For example, 20, 30 years ago, you can find more people with any kind of vaguely European features identifying as white to appear more high class or whatever somehow. While nowadays, it would be easier to find someone identifying as having like indigenous heritage or like because or something like that because of like political social scores to just jump on the boat of people they would have never even shown any interest in before, just because before they didn't have the political landscape that we have right now that makes you have some kind of righteousness now if you are part of like a certain victimized group. It's just like Kamala Harris or Dwayne Johnson magically identifying as like a million different races depending on who they're talking to and the spot they're like standing on. Now you get it. I myself, I have no idea how I identify really. I have direct heritage from Spain from both sides, from my dad and my mom. I sounded kind of redneck right now. I don't know why. From my dad and my mom. I don't know. From my daddy and my mom. I sounded kind of like that, didn't I? Well, I just did. But I also have indigenous heritage from both sides also. I have direct family that are like, you know, more morenos, like pretty much everyone in Mexico really. Everybody has family like that. And also I have like direct like white, green eyed, like blonde family members too. And supposedly, maybe, probably very distant Hindu heritage? I don't know. It's not clear. I can convincingly pull off whatever race I want to, if on the spot, I guess, if I wanted to. I feel kind of weird even saying I identify as anything, really. It's cringe. All I know is that I have those kind of features that sort of blends with anybody, really. Not to mention, it's more socially accepted nowadays to identify as black, for example, in Mexico. That wasn't a thing. It was kind of like, Mexico has very important heritage of black people stemming from the southeast area, but that's an entire story that would require a video of its own. Because, yeah, you would need to get like in full depth about that because it's complicated. Skin color can diversify from area to area of the country. For example, the states that already had original Native American people in them were able to resist mixed breeding over the generations a little bit more, becoming the areas where you have more pure-blooded, actual native, quote-unquote, tanner people around the southeast and central area, like Yucatan, Jalisco, Michoacan, Puebla, Veracruz, Guerrero, Mexico State, Oaxaca, etc., etc., etc. While areas that were in general slightly less populated by natives became more mixed or even wider places. For example, most of the north, central, west area, like Nuevo León, Chihuahua, Baja California, there was indigenous people there, but all those areas had like smaller populations. Sonora, Jalisco, Michoacán, Veracruz. Wait, didn't I just say Jalisco, Michoacán, and Veracruz were mostly brown? As I said, it's complicated. It all depends from county to county, pretty much. Matter of fact, sometimes, if you have a certain last name, and somebody asks you where you're from, or where your parents are from, or something like that, and you tell them, my parents are from Jalisco, they can very likely be all like, yo, my grandparents are from Jalisco too, and they have that same last name, and they were from Los Altos. And you're like, yo, my dad was from Los Altos. Ew. No wonder you're all like güerito. Güerito means like you're basically a generalized way to say white. It means blonde. Güero means blonde. It's slang for rubio, blonde. But it's just like a general way to say to call anybody white. Yeah, because there's areas like that in Jalisco. But Jalisco is one of the places it is rumored that Aztecs stem from. It's not known where the Aztecs came from.
So a lot of you have been asking me if I speak Spanish, and the answer is yes. Claro que hablo español. Spanish is my first language. I was actually born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, and then later on I moved to New York City. But yeah.
Mexicans are Aztecs. Nobody knows where Aztecs came from. Mexicans are technically not really Aztecs. Aztecs technically weren't really Aztecs. Aztecs were actually called the Mexica. The Mexica is only the main culture that dominated the Aztec civilization. This is where it existed. You see, roughly speaking, and if a Mexican or Mesoamerican scholar is watching me right now, they're probably gonna have my ass handed to me because try to act surprised. It's complicated. The thing that people know as the Aztec Empire was more of an amalgamation of several other conquered states assimilated by the ruling Mexica, these being Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. All of those combining forces in some kind of like superpower of its time. As I said,
It's complicated.
politics worked different back then, but it's complicated. They have potable water, high standards of hygiene, way high standards. Well, I'm talking about way higher standards of hygiene. Recycling and public school systems for boys and girls. Remember, this was the 1500s. Anyways, no, not really, no. The Mexica bloodline has been diluted to a point that could be almost immeasurable. And even if you could pinpoint who has actually Aztec, quote unquote, heritage, and even then, the amalgamated race that consists of the modern Mexican is going to be just or even more Paipai, Cochimí, Zapoteca, Tlaxcalteca, Nahua, Maya, Mazahua, Spanish, French, Italian, Irish, Yiddish. Ooh, what the hell is this all about? Is this even a thing at all? I don't know. Indian, German, Chinese. Try to act surprised. It's complicated. This outfit. Yeah, this is an easy one. The I'm past my prime and I know it basic dad outfit. What can I say? It's true. Yeah. Because most Western countries dress like that, really, pretty much. You have this character like everywhere, really. Mexicans are ugly. Everybody's ugly, really. And by that I mean, actually, very few people are actually ugly. And it all consists more of and how much you take care of yourself, your skincare, stress levels, exercise, and so on. Most people are fairly good looking, but the Mexican stereotypes revolve almost exclusively of an image mainly being propagated by media in the US, and this is the image of the immigrant, most specifically the illegal immigrant. And over the years, this has become kind of a caricature of its own, including some kind of lifestyle that exists in both sides in Mexico too. Mexico has a lot of economical issues. Tell me about it. We in the family have experienced not having anything to eat. Like, I know how that feels. That lifestyle doesn't allow people to have a lot of like personal care, and they most likely are more worn down by stress and poor, harsh living conditions. Notice how Latin American in general are either stereotyped as hideous mule people or super hot sexual objects, depending on the narrative media wants to propagate. Mexicans are fat. This is surprisingly a simple one, really, when you think about it. Obesity is a very recent problem in Mexico. It started somewhere around like the 90s, and it's going away slowly again. And I'm not saying there was zero fat people before the 90s, but it was extremely rare. There was not really that much abuse of food. People were normally built in any record that you can find prior to the 90s. Later on, after the Free Commercial Treaty of North America in 1992, Mexico started to receive a flood of U.S. food chains and all sorts of brands that Mexicans saw as an improvement, right? Because this treaty was supposed to make Mexico like first world country, supposedly. And they was bringing all these like superior things from the United States, right, including food. Finally, Mexico was going to officially go legit, team up with the United States and Canada as the North America Avengers team to go completely first world, because yeah, that's totally what happened. that's what that deal was all about, right? That's what it meant, right? It was going to be the coalition of North America, right? No. So we needed to step up our game, if we were going to be officially first world. Now, finally, we needed to act like first world, right? We needed to eat like first world. Salinas de Gortari has like the best interest for the country, right? Yeah, he's the president. Presidents are trustworthy, duh. And the more old-fashioned, like boring, same old thing that people had, not because it was actually boring, but people perceived it that way because they perceived it inferior. Because for generations there was this trope of things that people eat in the U.S. has to be better, right? Because they're a better country, right? They're richer than us. They're more powerful. Like the rest of the world pretty much was brainwashed into believing. Mixed with the notion, a lot of more poor people tend to have of eating a lot means you have more abundance of like wealth and everything, which for example was the common mindset that people had. And then you add yet more relentless bombardment of junk food propaganda during the 90s and 2000s, and that led to things getting out of control, only to start becoming around later, both by government intervention being via the health department and people in general realizing that obesity has a lot of latent issues. So yeah, you can say it was more accurate for some time. Mexicans' whole identity is the American dream. No, this is a hard no. This is a personal one. I hated this ever since I was a little kid. This was one of the very first things I started to develop in my mind when I started to get like socially aware, when I started to develop a conscience. As a very little kid, I was born in a lower class area of the northern border, so migration was a thing that I was regularly exposed to. So sadly, it's like a disease that gets propagated even in some groups of the country. That whole thing, that whole lifestyle, it's a big business to certain people. So the idea of the American dream is your only hope. Bring a lot of money to certain groups, and then people eat it up because of like media, pretty much, mainly Hollywood and political propaganda. You have no idea how many people I learned about that were trying to cross just for that U.S. status more than not actually having more opportunities in Mexico, or needing political refuge or whatever idea people can tell you when they see documentaries and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I know some people are gonna get triggered by this, but listen, somebody has to say it. Yeah. They get entangled in this mindset of anything below the United States is very unacceptable. They get surrounded by this subculture of this is what you strive for. They become very narrow minded. They leave everything behind. They have no real idea of what they're actually dealing with. They didn't grow up in the slump near the border. They don't see things in real time. They misjudge how dangerous it actually is, even though they know and they see it in like television, in whatever, in the news. They don't really know how actually dangerous it actually is to cross. They don't wrap their mind around it too much. They shrug off how highly demanding the lifestyle you really experience in the US is. Coyotes and polleros don't really care for you. They keep spoon feeding you the American dream because you're only cannon fodder for them in order to drain money out of you. Once these people are trapped in this cycle, they realize they don't have a way out. They sacrificed too much already to quit. And if they make it, the other side doesn't care for you either. You're just super cheap labor with no benefits. Why wouldn't they want you to believe in this American dream? It's a vicious cycle that keeps going and going and going. This stems from a long history of people growing up with the idea that Mexico sucks. You don't really want to be on the loser team. Nobody wants to play for the San Diego Padres when they have the New York Yankees right next door and they change team mid-season. I haven't watched baseball in like 23 years or even more than that. If you just knew the amount of people I've seen that are productive age, good health, sometimes even have enough schooling, but they settle at the border. They cross to have their kids in the States, but live back in Mexico because the States give a lot of benefits to citizens and child support or whatever, all those things. And they just live like that forever. Then they just live leeching on that forever. They keep pumping kids to get more and more benefits. Like it's like if these people, their children, were just like produce. But then, whenever like an activist or someone of that kind of nature interviews them in for like an article or the news or you name it, they always go into this character. They always go into character and be all like, "I'm just looking for better opportunities. I'm just here to work. They're dehumanizing me. Gringos are just racist, etc., etc., etc." Oh my god! And then just turn around when the spotlight is not on them anymore with that big smirk on their face just because they're so clever, right? They finesse the system. They stick it to the man, I guess, with money they got from people that had to work really hard to get. Because, like, earning money in the States is not as easy. Including fellow migrants that actually become productive members of that community. Not to mention the number of people that migrate to another place for actually needing political refuge or migrating for more legal means. You know what I mean? Even work or whatever. But it's more, they have more justifiable reason too. It's not generalized. Not everybody's like that. It's none of my business. Whatever infinite amount of reasons people might have to move to another country, but you know the kind of people. You can identify them anywhere. People in general migrate to other countries that offer high benefits to people who migrate there. They are always exploiting the system for everything that is worth, even if they could avoid doing it if they just made some effort. They break the law. They usually involve themselves in shady endeavors, let's say. They use the place they currently live in as a status flex to disparage the people of the culture they stem from. They don't make any effort to take actual part of the culture they stem from unless there's like a camera in front of them or there's some kind of benefit for them. They don't make an effort to respect the culture they take part of now and are overall just a nuisance that perpetuates the negative stereotypes that affects the country they originated from, and worst of all, the fellow people of their same heritage that are just living there, contributing, respecting, and overall just being a good example of, regardless of where you came from, you are capable and civilized and just a cool person. And hey, listen, even if you made mistakes in life, you took the wrong path or made some poor choices, doesn't mean that you're gonna be damned forever. If you're currently striving to turn your life around, I know I've made poor choices in life. Nothing illegal, fortunately, but still, I was dumb enough to sink my life into the gutter for years. I know how difficult it is to try to do the right thing and to try to view things clearly and set yourself straight. If you're doing that, that's very respectable and I'm proud of you. But God, do I disagree with the image of Mexicans only existing to get their green card. Trust me, that's not it at all. No. Sorry, I'm probably venting here a little bit. I've been biting my tongue about this since I was like 9. I would think about stuff like this ever since I was very young. I was a very lonely kid. Speaking of the hat, Mexicans are charros. They think of the word mariachi because it's entangled, both things entangled. A mariachi is a charro, charros. Obviously, not everybody. But I mean, anybody can guess that. Not everybody dresses up like that. And it's the typical outfit of Jalisco. So yeah, I guess it's accurate. Yeah, it's like a staple of the country. Even in Mexico, yeah, pretty much. The main one, you could say. Yeah. This subject is so profound and complex that it would require a video of its own, but yeah, I guess. Also, traditionally, the adornments that the outfit has should be made out of silver, and traditionally, because my dad taught me this, like the etiquette, the formal attire requires a gun. It's not used like that anymore for the most part, but it should have a gun if you want to go for the fully complete traditional attire. A straight up gun. A gun. There was this saying, like old fashioned saying, for like people that ate too much, and it went like it was cheaper to it is cheaper to dress a charro than to feed you because of that, because of the silver, the large amount of silver. And Mexicans are cholos. Well, the cholo culture stems mainly from the Mexican American community, not Mexican Mexican. It's obviously a mixture of Mexican fashion of the times, these being the 50s and 60s, and combining them with gang culture of the United States, like tattoos, the cars, etc. And also adding stuff like the bandanas, for example, that were used by jornaleros working on the fields to protect from the sun. It's a huge complex thing, but this is an oversimplified version because this video is long enough as it is. Oh my god, it's long enough as it is. Oh, I'm seeing the number right there. Mexicans are narcos. No, obviously no. Come on, fucking hell, man. That's physically impossible. Not all Mexicans are narcos. Just every Sinaloense is a narco. Anyways, just to wrap this up and make a quick map of Mexican stereotypes. Just because, I don't know, whatever. Veracruz, Jalisco, Sinaloa, Mexico City, United States, and 90% of the middle-aged male population of the planet in the 21st century. Oh my god, this is gonna take me like 1 week to edit. And then nobody's gonna watch it. I have like 260 something subscribers. It's gonna get like 10 views if I'm lucky. And I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna give me shit for it. Why am I doing this? Because I felt like this is what I do here. Hi. I feel like doing something and I get it done. Bye.